Thanks for joining us. My name is Chris Lose, and it is our goal with this show that you leave at the end of it knowing how to run for office. I'm excited to dive into this because I've got some incredible people that you're going to get to learn a lot from. Let me introduce the two ladies over here at this table first, because I got to meet them in 2020 when Donna was running for city council at that time, and Melissa Taylor was running for mayor here in the city of Monrovia at that time. And it was super cool, got to connect with them. These ladies are incredible. They've got a wealth of information and knowledge, and we're gonna extract as much of that as we can from them today. And I'm also joined by Christian Figueroa, who is a student who is getting ready to go to Stanford in the fall, where he's gonna be studying public policy. I know you've also got aspirations of...
Absolutely, yes.
Yes. And so this is your conversation, Christian, right
yes,
here.
Yes, I'm excited to be here since I do have aspirations up at Stanford and post-college.
Yeah, for sure. Well, with that said, let's just dive right into it. In running for office, like, that to me is one of those things where it's like, how do you start? What do you do? Like, let me ask to start it off, what was it that inspired, motivated, or how'd you do it?
Well, she inspired me. No. I've lived in Monrovia since 1987, and I pretty much got involved in the community activist-wise by getting to meet the city council that was in office at that time. And I volunteered for a lot of events and organizations, and I got appointed to the Historic Preservation Commission by then Mayor Bob Bartlett in 1995, which was the very first charter commission. And so I got to see how the politics worked from the back rooms, so to speak. I learned how to work with city staff. I learned how to work with the council itself and the mayor. And so it kind of inspired me. I didn't know that I had political aspirations, but because of my job, a lot of people kept saying, you should run, you should run, you should run. And I always said, yeah, maybe I will someday. And then I met Melissa through a group of women that got together. So, I'm one of the old school girls, right? And so when these women moved into town, there was a whole group of young 30-somethings with kids who decided that they wanted to get involved. And so I was very impressed with Melissa and her crew.
Love that.
And so when she decided to run for mayor, she really inspired me to go ahead and pull that trigger.
Yeah. Wow. I would say for me, I think a lot of times people think there's a formula to running where like you have to be a lawyer. Like this was me. I thought you had to be a lawyer, or you had to work in government, or you had to be on a commission, or you had to just know these things. Yes. And I have a very great mentor who told me that life experience is still experience. And what really triggered me was the 2016 election, where up until that point, I was involved in politics. I liked politics. I enjoyed watching the news. It was never something I was going to do. But then I realized, like, I can do this. If this can happen, then I can do this. And I started seeing young women, young mothers, kind of with the same background, running for office and winning. And really, at the end of the day, the main reason I ran was because at this point I had lived in Monrovia for 4 years, and I had seen 2 city council elections and school board elections, and they had been the same people, and nobody was running against them. And I was getting very disturbed by the thought of complacency of, we can't just, status quo is never okay. Like there's always room for, I have room for improvement, like we all do. Yeah. And what really pushed me to run was the lack of choices. And I thought, you don't get to be mayor or be city council just because nobody runs against you.
Agreed.
So I had reached out to Donna, and originally it was like, Donna, let's you and I run for city council, and then we'll find somebody to run for mayor, because they always tell us, it's the topic of running for office is that you should run on a slate because there's a group of people and you can pick, this whole group can get elected.
Run on a slate.
Which is how the city council had happened back in the 70s when Bob Bartlett, Pat Ostry, and Eric Faith said that's exactly what they did. They created a slate and they said Monrovia needs to get better and we are the ones who can do it. And so they replaced the entire 3 of the 5 city council members and they got things done. And that was because they were so motivated and they saw the complacency back then in the 70s, right? And so during that whole 70s redevelopment process where the whole Huntington Drive was redeveloped and that started the ball rolling as far as improving Monrovia. And then it just ended up flowing into Old Town. And at the time I moved here, there was 60% vacancy in Old Town. Wow. There was one restaurant to choose from. And it was, so those people on that city council definitely changed the tide, right?
So running on a slate is like a group, a collective of people that run together.
It's exactly that, a coalition. It's like for Donna and I, it was, we are aligned on our values. These are the things that we want. These are the things we think the city needs. If you vote for both of us, it gives us both a shot at making those changes for the community and being part of a team to make sure that happens. And giving a voice to the people in the community that thought the way we thought and felt the way we felt. And then just to wrap that up, we realized that no one was running for mayor. And then I thought to myself, I'm going to be an opposing voice. And instead of spending the whole time arguing with one individual, let's just try to remove that obstacle.
Yeah.
So
to rewind that piece real quick, as you knew you wanted to run, where did you go first? Like, is there an application? Is it a form? Is it a?
Yes.
Where do you go?
her name is Alice Atkins.
Alice Atkins, our city clerk, is an amazing resource.
Yes.
So if anybody thinks about running for office, you should make an appointment with Alice and pick her brain because she knows the ins and outs and what to do. And she has a whole booklet. So you go and meet with Alice and you say, I want to file my papers.
City Hall?
City Hall, right. Go to City Hall, make an appointment with her so that, she knows you're coming. You don't surprise her. And you say, I want to run for office and she'll give you all of the paperwork that you need to file. And then that just starts the ball rolling, right? And then you have to make sure that you get enough signatures on your application. You have to have 25, 30?
No, you're right. You have to have 25. Signatures, but the goal is to get 30. That way, if any of those, because the signatures that you have to get
verified,
they have to be residents within the city. They have to be able to, so they have to be over 18, and they have to be a valid resident in Monrovia.
And is there a financial component to, like, you have to raise X amount just to file?
So
No.
to begin with? Okay. I think it's $25.
You have to pay a filing fee.
Okay.
But at the beginning, you don't have to have a treasury yet.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. And I think to piggyback off of Donna's, that is the legal step of filing. But, for me, like I was saying, post 2016 election, I got very involved in organizations. So there's so many groups that have popped up since 2016, educating people to run. There are groups focused on millennials and Gen Zers. There's groups focused on women. There are groups focused on older, like women over 50 who've never run before. I'm speaking from my knowledge, which is a lot of women-based groups, but there's just so many resources out there that help you also before you get to, like, maybe after you get to filing, like learning about fundraising, learning about getting a supportive base, crafting your vision for why you're running.
And while we talk about the signature process, I actually, before I ran for city council, I ran for LA County Central Committee delegate because I was already a delegate with the California Democratic Party. And so I filed for the LACC and I got my signatures and 2 of them were ineligible and I wasn't qualified. So I learned my lesson the hard way. So that's why you should get 30 signatures for sure. You should get 30.
Like a minimum.
Okay.
A minimum, because there are going to be people that don't realize that they didn't re-register or they moved and didn't change their address, And the county's really particular on making sure that everybody who signs that
Yeah.
is real.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that prerequisite is for the city of Monrovia specifically. So it could vary from
Yeah.
city to city or
It could-
from like if state office, for example.
For sure. I think, each office probably, I would assume that assembly, requires more than 30
I would assume that
signatures.
too.
And Senate, just to have like a ballot initiative, you need 30% of the voting population. So it's a big part. And I think in Monrovia, like if you wanted a ballot initiative in Monrovia, you need 3,000 signatures. So making sure that registered voters are behind you is a huge component. Yeah.
A small group of people can achieve a lot.
Yeah.
Like you said earlier, politics is local, right?
Yeah.
So you got to get involved locally, and then you're going to get hooked, and then you're going to go
You are.
forward.
No, I love that. I'm glad we talked about that because in the show I was thinking like, how does one person run? But it's like, oh, that's an initiative, and how do you organize people to get something accomplished?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's doable.
Yeah.
It's doable.
Yeah, and on the topic of like preparing to run, filing papers, I guess there isn't, like you said, there isn't a perfect formula, or there isn't a set formula, so there isn't like an X amount of years that you should be a activist or you should be involved in your community before running. But what do you recommend an individual who, say, wants to run in 10 years do now in preparation for that?
I would say, the most important thing is to have a clear vision of like why you want to run. I think there's a lot of people who fall into the category of I'm going to run for office, and it's just like kind of say whatever they want to say because they think this is what's going to please people. I've seen that happen all over the San Gabriel Valley, and I think having a clear vision of why you want to run. I think if the goal is 10 years, I'm going to cut myself off right there. I would never say set your goal at 10 years because I set my goal as like,
Yeah.
I'm interested, maybe one day I'm going to run for office and I'm going to wait till my kids are graduated and I'm going to wait till I've like been in the community a little bit longer. But what is the saying about when you make plans and somebody has other plans? Like,
Yes.
It's not going to work out that way. Sometimes you're going to be presented with a situation where you have to strike while the iron is hot and your determination to make a difference is strengthened. And so I would say, if it's something that it's like a seed planted, that eventually one day I want to run for office, that now is the time to start a clear vision. Now is the time to talk to other people who've run for office for what they needed to do. You definitely have a lot of time. I would say give yourself more time than Donna and I did.
Yeah, I mean, we filed our papers in December for a March election. So we really had to hit the ground running. And it was a challenge for sure to do it that quickly. And had we known that we were going to do this, we certainly would have started a year earlier,
For sure,
right?
for
But,
sure.
But we did it, and I think we were successful.
Oh, for
Even though
sure.
we didn't win our races, I
Yeah.
think we got the conversation
Yes.
started. And I think the current city council heard us
Yeah.
and heard the people that supported us and said, that's obviously something that the community is wanting.
Yeah.
And so they put some of those things in place. So I feel like we made a difference even though we didn't get elected.
Yeah.
And so that's part of the goal for running for office is to have people's voices
Yeah.
heard. So it worked.
And I'll say to piggyback on the filing the papers aspect, because that's a big portion, is you can't file. So if the election's in March, you can't file today and go, I'm going to file for a March election. There's a set week of this is the week that you turn in your paperwork. And if an incumbent hasn't filed for office by that Friday, they get an extra week to decide if they want to file. So really, Donna and I did file that week because that's when we were supposed to, but we only decided to run like 2 weeks before because we realized we hadn't heard, there was no other, you can go, I think the California Secretary of State website to see who has set up finance programs, so you kind of can get a feel for who's running. But really, if you're gonna run for office, at minimum, you need 8 months, 6 months. I would say that's even stretching it. I would say you want a year because you first need to start going out to people and talking, and you kind of need to get that conversation going. And you had mentioned fundraising earlier, and that is a huge whether you want it to be or not,
Yeah.
whether you want it to be or not, it is such a huge component because, you know, paper mailers, I know so many people who are like, I wish we could be done with this. It's just a waste of paper. It goes in the trash, but it is a huge part of campaigning because people don't have TVs, but people check their mail and they see your name. People have name retention. They want to know more about you. Not everybody has Facebook. So this is a way that you can contact them, and mailers cost money. You have signs, you know, even volunteers, if you just have volunteers, you still want to like feed them, and that costs money. So I think giving yourself a year is good, especially in California, because we are an entire vote by mail state.
Right.
So Donna and I say we had 12 weeks, but we actually had 8 weeks because the election was
Yep.
March 5th,
Yep.
and ballots go out the first week of February. So my tactic that I did in that time was I realized I needed a lot of money. So I spent my first 4 weeks literally just fundraising, calling
Me
everyone
too.
I know, asking for it's a scary ask, but once you've done it 10 times, it gets a little easier because you want to be a viable candidate.
Yeah. And if you're involved in any political organizations or organizations that are aligned with your viewpoints, so like housing issues, right? So you get involved in those organizations ahead of time. So those people know who you are, right? So you have a sphere of influence in the areas that you want to have a voice. And then those are the people that you also ask for money. So like we have the Foothill Community Democrats, which we're both a part of. And this conversation applies to both parties. It's not just the Democratic Party, but and I'm sure there's a local Republican Party as well, group as well. So we approached them and said, we're running for office and we would like your support. And so when they give the support, they will give you money as well as part of their support. And the higher you go in the hierarchy, so like Planned Parenthood gave us money and Sierra Club gave us money. So your sphere of influence is important, asking the people you know for money, but that's not the big money most of the time. The big money comes from the organizations that align with your viewpoints. So you really have to, and when I appeared before the National Women's Political Caucus here in the San Gabriel Valley, they denied me at first. They said, we're not going to support you. We'll support you. We'll say we're supporting you, but we're not going to financially support you because you don't have enough money raised already. So you have to start raising money day one.
Okay, let's talk about that real quick. Raising money. Like when we talk about raising money, there's Girl Scouts that raise money and they need cookies. This is far different from that.
Yes.
Like,
It's
so is
just
there
an
like
ask.
a number, a ballpark, to be or
I can tell you how much. So
I'd say $10,000 minimum.
my campaign was 3 times that.
But she was running for mayor.
And then I know other campaigns that have spent, you know, I recently worked on a campaign where no personal money went in. It was all
Grassroots.
It was all grassroots
Wow.
funded. It was still more than $10,000. I say that because you can't ever really put a number on it. And all of this information is online. You can look at past candidates for office and see how much they raised. I know some have only raised, $5,000 and they did what they could with that. But just to give an idea, so yard signs, you probably want about 500. For a city our size, you probably want about 500 yard signs.
To start with,
that's $4,000. Mailers are anywhere between $3,000 and $6,000, depending on how much you get put out there. If you want to run YouTube ads or Facebook ads, that is a couple hundred. Banners, and you can get lucky. Like I know we had some people who donated. That's another option. People can donate their services in lieu of a payment
in kind.
That's what
donations.
It is, yeah. What else was money spent on?
And if you have somebody who has a building in a really visible location, they may not want to give you money, but they'll say you can hang your banner on my building, right? And so that counts. Right?
Yeah. And then the other thing is, besides just that, is the data that you need. Because you're not just going to knock on everybody's door, because you've got people who just will never line up with you, and you don't want to waste that time knocking on their door. So you have to find the voters in your community, whether that's Republican voters, whether that's I only want independents or Democrats. I want people who vote in every election. I want people who just started voting. All of that comes with a fee. So you can get that, whether you get it a printout, and then now there are phone apps, but that's a fee. So that's $100 to use this, and then more money if you want to add more users to walk with you. There's your website fees. There's I still have an out-of-town phone number because I've had it since I was 18 and I refused to change it. But I didn't have a local phone number, so I had to purchase a local phone number. So
I didn't know that.
Oh, I did, yeah. There's just so many little fees that add up to make it successful. And even running for office that's a full-time job in itself, too.
Yeah.
With the database, though, what was beneficial for us was that we were running as a slate or together. And so we shared the database.
Yeah.
So if you have a slate that you want to run with, then you can share expenses on some of those things. Not all of them, obviously, because, she's not going to help me pay for my signs, right? So,
Because I need my signs.
but use your sphere of influence for sure, and make sure that everybody knows you're running. I mean, you tell every single person that you meet, oh, did you hear I'm running for city council? Or did you hear I'm running for school board? So, and school board is a whole different thing that is a little wider election because it includes unincorporated Monrovia here locally. So there's more voters involved in school board elections than there are in city council elections. So that's important to know too. So you don't want to, I'm not going to say waste your money, but if you're running for
Spend
a
your money
council
wisely.
seat, don't spend your money in the county area because they can't vote for you, know.
I see.
Just tell people.
So while we're on the topic of fundraising and advertising, do you go to like a firm or consulting firm, or is that all on just people, volunteers, yourself?
So I think it varies. That's very costly. I was quoted $6,000 for a
Minimum.
firm, and I opted not to use a firm. I opted to use smart resources who were supportive of me, who believed in what I wanted to do. Would I have had a different outcome if I used a firm? I don't think so, because I think working with people locally, they know what our issues are, and they know what if we're going to focus just strictly on running in Monrovia, they know what we want. And firms sometimes come in with, you need this, or you need to talk this talking point. And Monrovians...
It's not applicable,
Right, that's not what they want.
Got it.
The other thing that I think is important to think about is getting involved in other people's campaigns to get some experience. So I was really excited to start working on people's campaigns back in the 80s. So I supported Joe Garcia, who was our city council person for many years. So I worked on his campaign. I worked on Mary Ann Lutz's campaign when she ran for city council, and then when she ran for mayor, every time she ran.
Running for Congress.
And now she's running for Congress, and so I'm going to help on that campaign as well. But if you can, and then the Measure RM that we did, we created that No on RM campaign, and so the people that you work with are going to see that you're invested, right? That you're invested in the community that you want to represent, and so they're going to give you their support. So it really helped me run my campaign, having helped on others.
Yeah.
So that's a really good way to get.
Yeah, and I have a question about that. So I've worked on plenty of state and congressional and even some national campaigns. How transferable is that experience to, say, the city of Monrovia?
Oh, I think it's easy.
Absolutely.
Like,
transferable.
I'm sure your skills in that, they're on a much wider scale. And I would actually say it's probably easier to narrow that down to what you need, because you probably have target goals for those campaigns that you just shrink down a little bit. And
Got it.
you'll
And
know your
also,
team.
like we have Chris Holden, who's our assemblyman, and we have Anthony Portantino. And I was involved in both of those campaigns when they first got started. Anthony was our assembly person before Chris. And so because you establish those relationships with people that are a level higher than you, they also support you. So they will help fund your campaign as well. And they'll outwardly support you and say they're supporting you. So you can put it on your flyers, supported by Assembly Member Chris Holden, supported by State Senator Anthony Portantino.
Yeah.
We got Judy Chu's endorsement, and she's in Congress. So, when you can use those names it does help you get a little more credence, right? And people go, oh, these are really serious people that care, right? That if the politicians that are in place right now are supporting them, then I probably should too.
Yeah.
If I believe in those.
So it's
views.
almost like a balance of like knowing exactly where you're running and what they need.
Yeah.
And then the fundraising piece, if it's 10,000 to 50,000, now knowing how to spend that most effectively.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there like a bottom, like to where you're like, I wouldn't run if I had less than X?
I would say I wouldn't run if I had less than 10,000.
Okay.
I mean, I had 5,000 when I approached the National Women's Political Caucus, and that was not enough for them to invest in me.
Yeah.
So I would say the minimum is 10,000. I also put my own money in. That was the money I raised, the 10,000. But I had money that I put in myself, which was about 5,000. So in all, I really had 15,000 to spend. And you can even loan yourself that money as the campaign. So as long as you say it's a loan to the campaign, and then if you have money left at the end, you can pay yourself back.
And I want to make a point in that it's not applicable right now, unless you have a secret child out there. But California is one of 13 states that campaign money, campaign fundraising can be used for childcare. So that is a huge, huge, huge advantage, I would say, to people like me who think, oh, I can't run, who's going to watch my kids? Some of that money is legally allowed to be spent on like babysitters or whatever you need. And I wanted to add that because it's something that not many people know, and I think it's really important.
And on that topic with, more broadly, like campaign finance law and regulation, where do you recommend an individual could go to learn about that and to just, running a campaign? I'm sure there are many laws and regulations and rules that you have to follow.
Alice, honestly, was our local city clerk, was a wealth of knowledge on that. And any questions you have, it's also very clear cut on the California Secretary of State website. Of like what you need. I would say like the biggest finance things are you can't take more than this much money, or if you get over $1,000, it has to be reported right away. But it was a very simple.
So with $99 and less, you don't have to report who gave you money. Okay, if they give you $99, so a lot of people will do that because they don't want their name on the filing, right? Anything over that has to be reported on forms, and that's the intimidating part. I think that people get worried about. They say, oh my God, there's so much paperwork involved. And there is, it's true. I would highly recommend if you decide to run for an office that you find somebody to be your treasurer, because that treasurer is responsible for filing all your paperwork. And you have deadlines that you have to meet, and you have to do it every quarter, I think it was. Luckily, we got in the game late, so we didn't have to do a whole year's worth of that. But
we only had 3.
but it was, I mean, I had seen that stuff because I had participated in others' campaigns. So I was less intimidated than had I never run before and I saw those forms, then I was like, oh my God. Yeah.
That was me, where I was like, what are all these?
Yeah.
What does all this mean?
So you have to have somebody who's good at being a treasurer and keeping track of your finances and recording everything that you get.
Okay.
Because you have to report it, unless it's $99.
Is there, would you say there's like a formula to running, or is it?
No. I think that's what I was touching on earlier.
Yeah.
I think that's what scares people. I think people really believe that they need to hit this goal or have this prerequisite or check this item off, and you don't. At the end of the day, I truly, within my heart, believe that if you care about the community and if you want to make a difference in this community and you are seeing things that you don't like that could be better, then you can run. That's all it takes. It takes courage. It takes people who support you and a clear vision. That's my formula.
I'll agree with that formula. I mean, we proved it by only having 4 months to run, right? I mean,
not even.
Not even. But we didn't have a formula at the beginning. We just kind of talked about it and said, well, we should do this. We should run for city council together, blah, blah, blah. And then it just kind of faded away. And then we both realized nobody's running. I mean, this is an unchallenged campaign.
Yeah.
And that's not a good way to have elections.
Yeah.
It's not good to not
good
ha-
for democracy.
Hear different,
Yeah.
for democracy. To not have different voices, to hear points of view that
Yes.
aren't being expressed or don't get expressed because there's no competition, so there's no debate.
Right.
Right. So I think the debate part is a really important thing. So if you feel strongly about a position or a point of view, you should run and get your voice heard
Yeah.
because we made a difference by running, even though we didn't win.
And how does someone maintain resilience during the campaign and post-campaign and throughout that entire time?
You have a good support system. You have I have a very good partner that I could go to and, say whatever I thought on that, whether it was like, ooh, good thing I didn't win because we're in a pandemic now.
My partner was not supportive. I did this in a whirlwind kind of a way, and so I never even told him I was doing it, right? And so when I came home and I said I filed for city council, he's like, "You what?" So I mean, he was worried about the time commitment, right? So, but I do feel like, where was I going with that? What were you talking about?
Resilience, good partner.
Oh yeah, resilient. I know a lot of people who have run for office who take it personally, and they're sensitive, and they get their feelings hurt because they didn't win. And you cannot do that. You cannot take it personally. I ran against two very strong incumbents. She ran against one very strong candidate for mayor who had been on the city council for 17 years. So it's hard to challenge incumbents, for sure. But I don't think you should let that stop you, and I don't think it should hurt your feelings if you lose. So, I mean, everybody was worried about me. Well, what happens if you lose? And I kept saying, well, I really think I'm going to win, because I didn't want to go there at that point.
Yeah.
And when I did lose, it was like, I'm fine. I'm really okay, especially when COVID hit and then we got the fire. I was like, man, I think I dodged a bullet, right? But it is what it is, and you just have to accept it and not take it too personally.
And I think, too, with that of people asking you, how are you going to take this? Because that was a question. I mean, we were up against very strong candidates.
Very strong.
And I could not be more, obviously the goal was to win, but I came within 200 some odd votes.
150, I think.
So, I'm very pleased with how it went. And what I told myself when people would ask me that question was, if I don't win, that's okay, because what I'm doing is showing people that you don't have to have a formula. I put my name in the hat 12 weeks before Election Day. I'd only lived here for 4 years. That was the biggest hurdle for me. People would ask me how long I lived here, and it was very...
I think name recognition was a hard thing for her because people knew me because of my involvement in the community as a commissioner and my real estate career and things like that. But nobody knew the name Melissa Taylor, right? And so I think she had a much bigger challenge not having that name recognition. So that's why I say get involved in the community before you run for office so people know who you are.
But I also think, too, that was my whole point, was that you didn't have to.
Yeah.
Right.
So what I wanted to see was, I said, if this opens the door for other people to run for office, and if this gives other people the courage, because there are so many intelligent people in this town, and they're not running for office, and they should.
Absolutely.
Because there are people...
We're talking to you.
There are people who have passions, who know about whether it's school board stuff and they're not running for it, whether it's planning and they're not running for it. I think that was my end goal. And the next following election was the school board, and we had lots of new candidates running. And then the next was the city council election just last year, and we had, 5 people running?
Yeah.
So
that was really inspirational that so many, because when I ran, nobody ran.
Yeah.
That's why I ran.
Yeah.
Because there was nobody running. But last time, to have so many candidates
So many
was
options.
refreshing because it was like, I have a choice. You know?
agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that was something you touched on too. Is different perspectives,
Yeah.
different thoughts. Monrovia has so many different sides. It's
For
a small
sure.
town,
Yeah.
but there's different corners that don't see what the other corners see.
right,
For sure.
for
yeah.
sure.
And I don't know if that's always reflected.
I do think it was beneficial that we had 2 empty seats. So we had Adams not running again, and we had Blackburn not running again. So I think that was why we had a bigger slate of people to choose from.
Got it.
And that's always a benefit when you have empty seats to fill, because even if one of the safe seats is running for an office like Becky did, she had a safe seat. She won the mayor, so then they had to fill her seat with somebody, and that's how Sergio Jimenez got on the council. So don't ever get frustrated that you came in third or fourth.
Is that
right?
a normal thing? Like, if you like run for a different space, but it's like, hold my seat for me, and then you could go and run for a different space?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So
it's very common.
It's very
Got it.
common, and I will not name this person, but there's somebody running for a presidential seat, and they actually have a state law that they're not allowed to do that. So that person has to effectively like give up their position. They're trying to overturn that law right now.
I don't know who you're talking about.
I think I don't know. Like,
Oh, that
Florida.
I just think like if you run for a different thing, like you should kind of give up your spot.
That's
just
how I feel too, but
You
that's
should go to
not how it
Florida
is.
and let them know.
And that happens too. We've got congressional candidates running for Senate seats that are effectively saying like, I'm
Giving
out.
up my spot,
Yeah.
No, and the other thing is that at the state level, there are term limits, right? So like right now, Anthony Portantino and Chris Holden are up. They can't run again for that seat. So now they're both running for different seats. So Portantino's running for state Senate. Senate, United
Senate.
States Senate. And he's running for Adam Schiff's seat. Congress.
Congress, yeah.
He's running for Schiff's seat. And then Chris Holden is going to run against Catherine Barger for supervisor of LA County. So I think term limits are a really good thing because it lets there be turnover and have more representation, right? So I think that they should do that at the federal level as well, but they
I
don't.
think that's important at all levels. I think that's how you stay
We
fresh.
should have that
Or
here,
you
too.
can
Yeah,
get
I
very
agree.
Maybe at the Supreme Court too.
Yeah, for sure.
So I have a kind of different perspective. I can't say whether I'm for term limits or against them because there are negatives to term limits. So if you have term limits and you have somebody who's a very Democratic candidate, they're only going to focus on their agenda, and there's no reason for them to work across the aisle. So there's no reason for bipartisan support in any way. Now, if you set a limit on term limits being like 10 years or 12 years, because you get that's more time to get things done because you can't. I mean, let's face it. If you're running for Monrovia City Council, you have a 4-year term. So your first year is spent learning what you're doing. The second year is like, okay, I'm kind of getting the hang of it. Your third year is, I got to start running again. And you have to run again. So you don't really get to do anything. I mean, obviously they get things done and we're still working, but there is a balance between term limits and being.
But 21 years on the city council is a little unrealistic. There should be term limits.
That was my next point. Was there's realistic expectations, and there's, I don't think like 4 years, like a 4-year term limit is a good thing because.
No, I don't think 4 years is.
Because that's.
So like, this is my non-political regular brain talking, right?
I am a normal
I feel
human.
like 12 years
12
makes
years
great
is-
sense
I do
because
too.
a kid goes all the way through school in 12 years.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Sounds kind of great.
Yeah.
Because a lot changes by the time they start school
sure.
and by the time they're a senior
Right.
leader.
Or even like Portantino's seat or Holden's seat. Those were, I think, 8 years
8
terms,
years.
and they got things done. They got reelected. There's, if you don't know, I'm from Virginia, and the governor of our state is only allowed 4 years. So it is
really?
super partisan. You get
Oh,
elected
wow.
and you have 4 years.
Oh,
and
wow.
It's
That's
just one
really
term.
so what's actually more competitive in Virginia is our state legislators, like our state Senate and the state assembly.
The House of Delegates.
The House of Delegates, because that's where things get done, because the leader is just going to go out there with this is my viewpoint. So that's what I mean
There's
when
a good governor there right now. Too,
no, there's not a good governor
okay.
there right now.
I'm not
I mean, depending on what side of the aisle you're on, it is a terrible governor for us.
I'm thinking of another state, Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania has a good governor. So that's what I mean about like, there's good things to term limits and there's bad things. So you got to find the balance in what that is. 12 years, I agree. I think that's a good
Yeah, I think that's a good one.
time to move on and do something else and open up the spot for somebody else.
Yeah. Let's bring it back home and make this make sense for the person that is watching that would love to run.
Okay.
So first
Do
step is they're gonna
First step is
if you're thinking
you think about it, do it.
Do it.
Okay, yeah, and get started. Don't wait.
Right.
Correct.
100%.
Correct.
Go to City Hall. Talk to Alice.
Yes.
Set up an appointment. Set up some time. Talk to her.
Yes.
Get the paperwork. After that, fill out the paperwork.
I would also visit the Fair Political, what is it called? The FPCC, Fair Political.
Right. It's the FEC for the state of California.
FPCC, I
Yes,
think it is.
yes, yeah.
And it's for elections. And I would go visit the Secretary of State is where it is. And I would visit that website and read up on all of the stuff that's there too, because that will guide you through the process as well.
And I would say before you visit Alice, so there's a step in between I'm going to run for office and visiting Alice, and that is find your team. Find the people
yeah.
that are going to say that believe in your message. Find the people that one of the really great things that have come out of running for office in the past few years is what's called relational organizing. So it's like, I'm going to run for office and you three are my team. You're going to go out and find 3 friends that are going to vote for me. And you're going to find 3 friends. And it's a pyramid scheme. And then you're going to find, and that way when you go into the office, you already have this belief. So it's not just your own, because a lot of people can run with their own voice. And that's
Yeah.
not necessarily the best thing. But
We have one here in Monrovia that does that every time.
but when you have people behind you who are like, yes, Melissa,
Yeah.
you have to do this. Yes, Christian,
for
you
sure.
have to do this. That's when you go to Alice, because that's when you know you're going to get your 30 signatures. And that's when you know as soon as you file and you've signed and you paid your $25 check that you can start knocking on doors.
Okay.
And I would add one more thing to that is that when we were talking about slates, right, running together with somebody, 2, 3, 4 of you, I still think that you need to have separation as far as your audience, right? So I know different people than she knows, right? So she had an event that I went to, and that's where we met you, right? We met you at a campaign event.
Yeah.
And I think that it was your campaign event, but I was introduced as, running with her.
Got it.
And then she had another thing, an event.
You had one. You had the one at the restaurant.
You had the one over at Paragon, and you let me talk, right?
Yes,
That was
yes, yes.
the
Yeah.
John and
Yeah.
Elizabeth. And then I had one at Cafe Mundial, and she was there. And so I spoke what I wanted to say to my people, which was there was some overlap for sure. But then I invited her up to talk so that they met her too. People that didn't know her had an opportunity to meet her. So yes, get a slate, but make sure that you keep some things that's
Separate.
personal to you.
Yeah.
Got it.
Chris, you got any other questions as you will be the one running far before I would ever think about it?
No, I mean, this was very helpful. Thank you. There's definitely a lot of information to process. And I could see how, one, it could be overwhelming, but it also could be, you could take it bit by bit and then just get through it. And I think, one of the most important things that I heard was just about the resilience and just maintain that resilience and to not take that personally and to just, grow stronger and be more motivated afterwards. So.
And stay excited.
And stay excited.
Yeah, because we were excited through the whole
Up
thing.
until
I
the
mean, we
end.
were just like, this is so great.
Yeah, so it has to be fun too.
Yeah,
it does.
I mean,
Yeah.
it takes up a lot of your time. And I think everything you just said and the resilience factor of it, and the one thing I would leave with is, yes, we faced hurdles, but there are not any hurdles that would ever make me suggest that someone shouldn't run.
I agree 100%.
I think, be passionate about what you're doing. Have fun with it. Have people supporting you and go for it, because you clearly have a vision and the city needs your vision.
Love it.
Wow. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much
You're
for this
welcome. My
wealth of
pleasure.
Yeah,
information.
thank you
That was
very
great.
much.
Thanks for inviting me.
Yes.
Absolutely. Christian, thank you as well. Both you ladies experienced the how-to part, the
Yeah.
hurdles, the stay excited. So that was the goal.
It's
for
a roller
anyone
coaster
watching.
for sure, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Because every time I got shot down, we can't give you money because you don't have enough already. It was like, wait, what?
Or every time you signed on Facebook.
Oh, yeah. I was very fortunate because there was opportunity for people to attack. And I felt like this was a really well run campaign. Neither side slung mud or talked back about me at all. I don't know about Melissa. I think she had a little different experience.
Right.
But the two candidates I ran again, their campaigns never came after me.
But that's
and
gotta
it could
be
have.
That's part of it. Like, I think that's like, I don't know. You just
Yeah.
see if people like to go low and hit below the belt, and you see if people like to play fair.
They didn't
play
go
fair.
low. I only had one thing go low, and they put campaign signs over my office. But other than that, it was a very clean campaign, and I think that I was very thankful, and I appreciated it.
Well, like Michelle Obama, her quote, "When they go low, you go high."
That's right. You go high.
Yeah.
And everybody's on social media. Everyone is aware of comment culture. Like, it's in real life too,
Right.
and it's
Yeah.
everywhere.
It is.
Right,
It is.
right.
And a lot of people are keyboard warriors, and they're braver to say it online than they are to you in person.
Correct. So
And
don't
that's
let the keyboard warrior scare you.
Don't take it personal.
Yeah, again.
Don't take it personally.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome.
We hope this was helpful, and we hope that this will encourage you to step out, get your team together, and maybe run for office. Thank you all again so much.
You're
Thanks,
welcome.
Chris.
Thank you.
Thank you.